So we're climbed by Coinsurez. What's up?
How you going? Good. Yeah, good to be in here.
Yeah, well, it's definitely taxing after last night. But
You are on fine form, my friend.
I was
Fine
like,
form.
yeah.
Very impressed.
Apparently, that was the other thing. My shirt was inside out.
Yeah. You had one of those kind of Superman moments. You just kind of ripped it open, and yeah, I was blown away. It's
Yeah.
very sexy.
Very
geez.
sexy. Very sexy. Full beard, full chest hair, like a bear.
No. Anyway, so have you enjoyed the conference?
Yeah, amazing. I wanted to come last year very badly. I knew about Paraleni Polis, but I just wasn't really aware of the conference and hadn't looked into it too much. And then last year, Honey Badger, everyone was talking about it, and I looked into it, and I was like, man, this is this is the perfect conference. But because it was last minute, I actually managed to get a ticket, but just with work, because it's about 2 days to get here from New Zealand, about 2 days to get back, it just couldn't quite rearrange things to make it work. So had a ticket but couldn't come, and I was really gutted. So this year I'm just super amped to actually finally make it on, because this whole place and this whole thing is just amazing to me. So yeah.
And what I found really interesting about your talk was your death metal band. Was it death metal?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably the best, like when you get into all the subgenres of the stuff, it gets pretty complicated, but I mean, death metal is a pretty good description. Yeah.
And you had a run-in with because you used to work for the police, right? And
that's right.
And they didn't kind of appreciate the lyrics.
Yeah, well, it was, so I was, when I joined, I was doing that, and I've been playing music since, I was like 16. But so I started working that job, and then, it's one of these things where I don't think, plenty of people knew that I played in a band, but I think it was more that when someone decided, because basically a journalist decided to make a beat up story to sell things or whatever, and just painted me out to be this complete, nasty villain or whatever. But when that went down, pretty much I got the letter from I had to go meet the head of the area I was in, and basically said, look, hey, if you don't quit the band, we're going to fire you, and you're going to lose your job. So yeah, it was an interesting experience. Yeah.
So you opted out of the police?
No, I mean, well, I kept working there at the time, but I mean, it was a really good experience look, when I joined the police, I was really young, and I've always kind of been someone, and when you're in metal, I mean, I don't think you need to say anymore. I've always had quite a kind of free thinking way about doing things, but I hadn't really, at that young age, I haven't really formulated your kind of worldviews and how these things sort of stick together. But it was something that really reinforced, when I did it, I did it really for the life experience, not really that I believed in laws or rules or that sort of thing, whatever. I just wanted to, get that real world experience that you can't get anywhere else. But it was really something that reinforced something that I felt the whole of my career there. If you feel like an outsider and you feel like you're someone who doesn't fit into that society, but it made it very clear that, you're not kind of welcome. But I mean, at the same time, I wasn't going to let that stop me from doing what I wanted to do and get what I wanted out of that. So I stuck at it. And then really, so the letter I got was basically, quit your band or you're going to be fired. And my reply was, this is human rights to artistically express yourself. And you can't just tell me to do that. So I pretty much told him to, very politely and officially, get fucked. And just stuck with it for another 4 or 5 years, I think, crazily enough, when I think back at it now. But yeah.
And are you still in the band? Is that still active?
Yeah. So that the band at that time was a slightly different one. That was called Dawn of Azazel, and we did another 3 or so albums, and then the other guys left, and we kind of disbanded. But I play in another band now called Diocletian. It's my main sort of one. So we've just put out a new album, and we're touring over this way in May next year. We're doing a bunch of festivals and that over there. So yeah.
What are you working on in crypto at the moment?
So I work for an exchange. I mean, I'm quite new to programming, and I gave a talk about my revelatory, life-changing revelation at the Honey Badger talk about, for me, I quite recently realized, about the connection between software and music and what it really means and all that sort of stuff there. So I'm quite new to software, but what I'm doing now is working for an exchange at home in New Zealand. It's a really, really small one called Dasset that is owned by kind of the mother company of Brave New Coin. And we're kind of rebuilding the exchange to kind of relaunch it with a whole bunch of things there. So I'm doing that, working remotely at the moment, and doing that. And yeah, it's really super interesting. And yeah, working on my own. I've got a couple of nice little Bitcoin projects on my own GitHub and stuff that I'm working and building out. So yeah.
I used to use, back in the day, Cryptopia, which is a New Zealand-based exchange, wasn't it?
Yeah. The shame of New Zealand. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Well, it happens very frequently, doesn't it? I think Beaksy's the most recent. Is it Beaksy? The CEO's disappeared or something? Or maybe not.
Yeah.
But there was one recently I read about. It's almost like a weekly thing, isn't it? The
Yeah, I mean,
exchanges.
exchanges are pretty an interesting business model to work for. But I mean, I think without trying to shill my employer here, and I think the Brave New Coin mother company Techme and that it's a pretty professional organization. So, but more just like it's a really good place to get a bit more professional about software, because I mean, to me, like, I really want to be good and professional about this, and eat my vegetables, if you know what I mean, so to speak, in software. So it's a really good kind of test bed to learn. But I just feel super fortunate that this early in my programming career, I've started right off working there. So yeah.
And so did you code before the police, or was that kind of
No, it's only in the last year, really. Like I went to I've bought my first Bitcoin in 2014, and held it and was really into it, but I just didn't think it was. I mean, this is like right at the end of 2014, and anyone that's around 2015 knows it was looking very grim for 2 years there, right? And so I didn't think anything was going to happen anywhere near as quickly as it did in the last couple of years. So 2017 came along, and I thought, well, I've been relatively anonymous about it. Like, I tried actually with the band to sell some stuff with Bitcoin, but there wasn't much interest at that time. But I hadn't really kind of put myself out there, and I kind of thought, well, you don't really want to be too loud about, holding Bitcoin or anything like that. But that came around. I thought, well, I felt, well, if I don't get involved now, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. And I think with my background and story, I'm probably better off being loud about it than quiet about it. So I actually went to a bunch of conferences and trying to figure out what to do. And I was thinking, maybe I can relate it to my previous police career, or there's some connection there. And there didn't really seem to be anything. But what I really saw it building on Bitcoin in 2008 was just how, the connection to music, right? Where it wasn't companies and stuff that ran Bitcoin and made that, the new innovation. It was just organic groups of people that got together and decided this is what it's about, and they create some new kind of art or expression of what this medium means, and people get behind it and they get excited and think, yeah, this is really cool, and that's what moves it in whatever direction, right? And we see that with like BTC Pay Server or SegWit 2x. The companies can't just go and say this is Bitcoin. It's the organic collections, there's kind of individuals that together, just like in music, that decide where this goes, right? And before that, I thought to work on Bitcoin, you had to be like Dasher or Gregory Maxwell, some genius. It made me realize, it's a lot easier than I thought to be able to write something that's really cool, and that, if you understand people and you understand users and you can express, what you think about the world through software, that there's a real opportunity. So that made me realize, shit, I've got to learn to code, and it's much more achievable than I thought. And so that since then, I pretty much dropped everything else in my life and went full on working in coding and getting better. Like most of this year, I've been on top of a 35-hour job doing about 40, 50 hours coding a week, just trying to, and, stumbling and falling over, making stupid mistakes like you do at the start. But that kind of drive when I saw about the agency that you have with code, right? The freedom that it gives an individual to influence the world, but also that in the world we live in now, if you're not coding your own software, you don't have the ability to, at least in some way, influence it. You're at the behest of whatever package some company puts on your thing there, and if something like The Big Hack on Netflix, I think is a great hack. That documentary, I think, is a really good example of, if you're not writing the code, the code is controlling you. And I don't think anyone's got really, or not enough people have got their head around about just how important that is. So the agency of writing software is very important. So long-winded answer, but that was what kind of drove me to move into that field. Yeah.
And one thing is to learn new skills, like you're learning coding now and then applying that. But you, with your background in police and personal security, you have some skills dedicated that or like specified or specialized in. How do you think that you can use these old skills in this new environment?
Well, I'm actually giving a talk at the Transatlantic Crypto Conference about physical security in Bitcoin. So yeah, hopefully there's some useful insights that I can share from there. To be honest, I'm kind of on the fence about it, man. I don't think there's too much need for it just now. There certainly will be places, and I'll be talking about some things where I think maybe we need to be a bit more active about it than I think people are. But at the same time, one thing I'd like to say to everyone, I think everyone should be aware of, is like, man, when it comes to security, there's a lot of alarmists, right? And there's going to be a lot of people saying, oh man, you've got to buy this and you got to learn this training, which I'm going to sell to you, you know, to shill their own stuff. So you have to be cautious about people. There are a lot of people who are going to make things a lot more scary and or blow things up as more real threats than they are. So, you know, I don't want to. I want to add some stuff about that, but at the same time, you know, I think what is a far bigger risk, and I've seen this with the police and things like that, is you get a super toxic culture when people become focused and super things about all these edge cases and paranoia. And one of the greatest things about this whole space that I love so much, you know, very similar to music in that it's like a small kind of counterculture, all organized around some kind of outside ideas that people on the street don't get, but we all have these shared understandings and small sort of clicky things. Like how welcoming and friendly this whole community is very, very powerful. When you combine that with smart people and also people that have money, that's a very powerful force. So, I mean, I think it really did teach me a lot of things about that culture, about the way that you can manage. I've seen what it looks like really badly when you've got a very security focused kind of culture, and how that can turn into a bad negative space, and maybe some insights there about how we can keep what we have here, and particularly at this conference, you see it, you know, as something which it's not going to devolve into a more negative kind of culture, which I don't think this is at all at the moment. So
I think the you know, going back to the fact that you know, you're saying about contribute. You don't have to be, well, obviously Luke Dash Jr. and Greg Maxwell, they are geniuses, especially when it comes to Bitcoin, but anyone can actually contribute. That's the most amazing thing about it. You know, anyone can, whether it's reviewing pull requests, whether it's, you know, comment, anything, even just the language, you know, punctuation. I mean, it's great. Anyone can contribute.
That's what I was really trying to get across in my Honey Badger talk is, you know, the whole idea of this movement is not just Bitcoin is going to change money and all the flow-on effects of sound money, all that sort of stuff there. It's also a social revolution, in that you now have agency to control what is a massive part of political power is money, right? And you can think in the past, right, when it's things run by a company, you can like complain to the manager or something, but you know, you're not going to get much traction, right? Whereas, you know, you and I can say, man, this sucks, and we can do it in a better way, and we can actually code it and write it and push out the software. And, you know, when that clicks with Bitcoin, that you can use it exactly the way you want to do it and interact with the protocol, you know, and you can write the code, and there's no license or thing that you have to get. There's nothing stopping you. I think that is a very revelatory thing. But as you're saying, it doesn't have to be the code, and it can be like what you've been doing with Wasabi, right? Writing the documentation, all the stuff around the side, right? This, like, again, I want to make the point, like, software is art, and it is a movement, right? And if I'll talk about music because that's what I understand. You've got the guys on the stage playing the guitar, but behind them there's a row crew, there's guys who tune the guitar, there's guys doing the lights, there's people driving the bus to get them, the catering, the people that put on the venue. Like, you know, it doesn't happen with just what you see in front of you. There's a whole support team to make this stuff work, and that's what's really, really important. And so those things all unite. Like with music, people get together because they share an ideal, and they have something that's, like, for lack of a better way to put it, it's cool. You know what I mean? And I think one thing which I'm starting to see, but I think people need to maybe articulate a little bit better in the space, just that idea of what do we stand for? What are those principles that draw all those people in? Because, you know, what a lot of the stuff is free, or people are doing out of the kindness of their heart, but they're doing it because they believe in what the mission or whatever the stuff is, right? And if you're clear and articulating that, that's what brings the people in. And there's communities like Samurai and Wasabi and BTC Pay Server all have these really strong groups of people around them all helping out, and that's what brings them together as those shared ideals, right? So yeah, just trying to push that message a little, I guess.
Yeah. And I actually, so I've been like learning a bit of Python recently, and well, at the moment I'm software testing some side chains, some Bitcoin side chains, and I've learned a bit of Python, a bit of Bash, and it's actually really empowering when you write a script. You feel great. It's like, you know, I can imagine like when an architect sees a house that they've you know, that's been built based on their designs, but it feels so good to run. It works, and you're like, wow, you know, I've built something, and I can actually facilitate and develop my own ideas without needing other people. I can, you know, if it's just a script to do some basic stuff, or whether it's something more complex, I now think, you know, I've got the power to be able to make my ideas come true.
Yeah. I mean, I had a similar experience. Like, so I've written 2 applications. One's kind of like a QT version of Ian Coleman's kind of word tool where you can put in all the BIP39 stuff and it will spit out the way you want it. And I made another one that's kind of like a custom transaction builder where when I was learning how to create a Bitcoin transaction from scratch, it's just nothing that would let you manually input all the vectors that go in there, right? And it's that, like you're saying, that agency that you get when you first, like I've generated these keys from code that I wrote myself from scratch that I have then transmitted on the Bitcoin network with a transaction that I put together by hand. And I know everything that has gone on in here, and it's exactly the way I want to do it. And if I want to perhaps put a custom fee or a certain type of transaction or use a script code that's not enabled in a wallet, I don't have to take from the options other people have given me. I can do it the way I want to do it. And it's hard to explain until you have what you're talking about. When you see it and when it clicks, you're like, it's a mind-blowing experience. And to me, one of the strongest things about Bitcoin is it brings you in. A lot of people are here because the number go up, right? Because they heard they can make some money. But then it's this mind virus that opens you up to all these other things about the power and agency of software and all these other things about kind of self-sovereignty. So
yeah. And is there a GitHub for that tool? Because I'm interested.
They're both on Coinsurez NZ is my my GitHub thing, and so the key one I'm actually going to try and come up with a slightly better name than this. I'm just been smashed with work stuff. But I'm just going to rebrand it and add a few extra little features on that. So that's called like BTC Key GUI, I think. But the other one is called Libra TX, and that's there. And look, it's primarily designed as a transaction tool. Not really necessarily in test for it to be a mainnet sort of tool, even though there's nothing that really stops that. But what I've really designed it for is I was trying to write a Bitcoin wallet from scratch after doing Jimmy Song's course. And it was just, there was lots of things where I wish there was a test vector or a way that I could see how this works, particularly like SegWit, learning SegWit. It's not that clear in the BIPs and the documentation about exactly, like, one thing that really stumbled me up was the script code you spend is actually the pay to pub key hash script code, not the one that you paid it into. And it's just not kind of clearly, really explicitly explained there. And so I just wanted something where you could, someone in my situation of learning that could have something which made it a bit easier. So it's kind of like the output that it spits it out in as well. The transaction is all color coded, so you can nicely see what all the components are, which I stole off Jimmy Song's course the way he did that because it was easy to learn. So it's really designed as primarily as something to help people learning about Bitcoin, is to make it a bit easier to understand what's going on under the hood. So check it out if you're interested in that.
I actually Sublime. I always recommended Sublime. It was only actually recent. Well, I've probably using it now for about 4 or 5 months, but it was last week that I realized if you press Command B, it would execute the code. And I actually, the joke is I wrote so I wrote a bash script that because you testing your iteration after iteration. I was getting fed up of having to, type in the commands or whatever, blah 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 .py. So I actually wrote a little script that just looks under every, or you can either pass it a directory or it looks under the subdirectories and puts them into a menu and then just allows you to sort of think it into, and it's so useful. But obviously, then I was like, well, I learned something in the process. I probably use the Sublime version a bit more now. But it's really like there's some. It's really just satisfying when you. Yeah.
And what the most powerful thing is, I think, like, if we all know that, like, once those of you that stick your head into it, you realize that learning code is actually pretty easy because. Like, I've learned a lot of different kind of skills in my life where I've decided I want to learn that, and I just go and do it and stumble through the process. Like, for me, that was like teaching and public speaking, which I did before I transferred to software. I had no training whatsoever. I just decided I want to do that and kind of stumbled through it. But software's like ridiculously easier in that there's an instruction manual somewhere, and you're never lost like you are with other skills where you're kind of waiting for someone to give you the opportunity or some. You just learn the stuff, and so it's easy to get. But the difference is, I think, with this space is, like, there's a lot of options out there to learn code, but people here are so supportive, and there's some really talented people who are gonna, fall over backwards to help you get better. And in other things, like if you're just doing regular web development or something, I don't think that community and that sense of trying to help people out is anywhere near as strong. So one thing I picked up very quickly, going to those conferences before I was coding, is that you can very easily ride on the coattails of some much smarter people here and kind of level up way quicker than you're going to do with other things. So for all the reasons we talked about, like, I really encourage everyone to learn, even just to have a little bit of a taste of what's going on. If you're involved in the space and you want to have something to do, the simplest thing is just learn to code. Even if you're like me and you know nothing about coding, it's to start from scratch and do that. And believe me, in a year, you'll be amazed at where you'll be versus where you started. And once you've got that available, there's a million more options in the space about what you can do to get involved or get paid or help out. So
and contribute to Bitcoin,
Yeah,
or any other open source project that you want to.
And as I said, it's not just these geniuses writing Snore and Miniscript and all this stuff in there. It's someone's got to write the documentation, right? Someone's got to build the apps that the users use. Someone's got to do the instruction videos. Or there's an army of stuff to be done, and you need the people who play all those put all those important kind of building blocks making that happen, right? So yeah. And like I said, you're right in this, man. If you want it to be this way, it's on you to do some work and make that happen. Like, Bitcoin is proof of work in many more ways than you would think, man.
Yes.
It's what you put in is what you get out in the space, on a meta level and on a personal level. So it is very important for everyone to realize that they have that agency, but also to take action and change it the way they want it, rather than just sitting and complaining. Because there's no manager with Bitcoin, right? There's no person you complain to. The only person you complain to is you for not getting out there and changing yourself. So,
yes.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
No problems, man. Really good to come on.
And,
Thank you.
You're at TC Conf as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to be speaking. My conference, my talk series called the Hodl Guard. It's
Nice.
She's a pun on the bodyguard, and what I'm going to be talking about there is. So first, I'm going to look at Jameson Lopp's list of physical attacks and share some stats and some conclusions from that. And then I'm going to talk about some specific stuff based on my professional background about that might be helpful and applicable just for general Bitcoin people who want to be a bit more conscious of the physical security stuff. So
Very nice.
And that's TC Conf Transylvania next week. You're there as
Precisely.
well, Max?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. And Tom,
So,
the whole crew.
where can people find you? What's the Twitter? What's the PGP?
So Twitter is Coinsurez NZ. PGP, gee, you put me on the spot there. trying to call that. I've got this one here, but I try not to use that one. Well, it's on my. If you go to the end of my Honey Badger talk, I've got it there. And GitHub, Coinsurez NZ on GitHub as well. Telegram, I think I'm just Coinsure, whatever. Any of those things, great. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, fantastic.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much for
Thank you
joining.
so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Cheers.